Hey everybody, it's Tony Codispoti from the GreatVocalMajority.com blog and podcast. And today we're going to talk about how the media is biased. There's a news flash, huh? And I'm going to show you an example of this today that really illustrates how the media manifests its bias. Yesterday, Donald Trump was speaking at a town hall meeting in New Hampshire when this happened. Take a look at this.
So I'm really honored by the crowd, and we're going to have some fun now, because instead of making a speech, which I've been doing over and over and over, I want to take questions. Don't we like that, right? Okay. All right, let's start with this group right over here. Come on. Okay, this man, I like this guy.
From White Plains, amen, okay? We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. Right. You know he's not even an American.
We need this
birth
question.
certificates,
This
man.
question.
But anyway, we have training camps growing where they want to kill us. Mm-hmm. That's my question. When can we get rid of
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. And, you know, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there. We're going to be looking at that and plenty of other things.
Now, I wanted to point this out because Trump is coming under fire for not correcting this guy. He said a few things. First thing he said, that we have a problem with Muslims in the United States. I don't know if that's true. We don't have problems with Muslims in the United States. I mean, there are definitely problems with Muslims around the world, but I'm not so sure we have problem with Muslims as a population in the United States. That isn't true. And Trump never corrected him on that. I don't know if it's Trump's job to correct him on that, but he is coming under fire for it. The second thing the guy said is that Obama's a Muslim. Well, that's just not true. Everybody knows that Obama's not a Muslim. I mean, if you say anything about Obama, you could say that he's perhaps a sympathizer to Muslims. He certainly acted that way. He doesn't practice as a Muslim. It doesn't appear that he's hiding a Muslim religion, but certainly you could say he's sympathetic to Muslims more than Christians. That is certainly true. The third thing that this guy said that really is something that was valid and legitimate is that there are, in the United States, radical Muslims training in a military-style training camps. And this is something that is on the FBI's radar screen now. How much of a threat that is debatable, but it is valid, it's real, it is a threat of some kind. And Trump didn't address that at all. And if you look at Trump's reaction to the question to begin with, he was like, we need this as the first question. I mean, is what he said. Clearly, he's not comfortable with the guy's question. But, you know, the media is hammering him, and especially the liberal commentators in the media are hammering him for not doing what John McCain did. Well, sorry. He shouldn't do what John McCain did. John McCain lost the 2008 election because he bent over backwards and forwards for political correctness' sake. Now, having said that, in its context, you can be critical of Trump not addressing this guy coming out there and spouting all kinds of ridiculous stuff. But that's not where the media bias comes in. Let me show you where the media bias does come in.
When they weren't turning on one another, the Republican hopefuls took turns targeting Hillary Clinton in last night's debate in the CNN exclusive. The Democrats.
Now, the first thing I want to point out about this, Wolf Blitzer says when they weren't turning on one another. He talks about the Republicans turning on one another. How did that happen? Every single question that was posed to a Republican by the news crew there at CNN, from Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and even the conservative you Hewitt, every one of them was like, this Republican said something nasty about you. Tell us why he's wrong. I mean, it was deliberately set up that way. And here's Wolf Blitzer saying, well, when they weren't sniping at each other. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That's how they set it up. And then he goes into, they were criticizing Hillary Clinton. So let's go into this for a moment, and let's see what Hillary has to say.
You certainly did take a lot of fire from the Republicans at the CNN debate last night. I assume you watched it, especially from the lone female candidate up on the stage, Carly Fiorina. She said, if you want to stump a Democrat, she said, ask them about Hillary Clinton's accomplishments as Secretary of State. If you were on that debate stage with her, what would you say was your #1 accomplishment as Secretary of State?
You know, Wolf, I didn't get to see all of their debate, but I saw enough of it to know that this is just the usual back and forth political attacks, the kinds of things you say when you're on a debate stage and you really don't have much else to say. I didn't hear anything from any of them about how they're going to make college more affordable or get down student debt or get equal pay for equal work for women, what they're going to do to make sure that we deal with the challenges of raising incomes for hardworking people. So I don't really pay a lot of attention to this kind of rhetoric that heats up the debate stage. They're all trying to vie for more attention from, obviously, the Republican Party. I'm going to let them decide how best to do it. But if anybody's interested, you know, there's a long list about what I have done, and I'm very proud of it. You can read my book, Hard Choices, read about how I negotiated a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. You can read about how I put together the coalition that led to international sanctions against Iran. You can read about what I did when I was First Lady to get the Children's Health Insurance Program, or a senator working across the aisle on issues like getting better health care for our veterans. You know, this is just the silly season. I am looking forward to eventually debating on that stage, whoever they finally nominate once they get around to doing that.
I just want to go over what she just said. She was asked a question about accomplishments. Carly Fiorina had a quip during the debate that if you want to stump a Democrat, just ask them what Hillary Clinton's greatest accomplishment was as Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton, in this answer, cited just 2 things that she did as Secretary of State. She negotiated a ceasefire with Hamas, which has been done like 50 times between Hamas and Israel, going back probably the last 40 years. There's probably been at least 3 dozen, maybe 5 dozen ceasefires between Hamas and Israel. That's not exactly a great accomplishment. And that was the first thing she named. And then there was the sanctions against Iran, which would be great, but that's exactly what Obama dumped to get Iran to sign the stupid nuclear deal. So those are the only 2 accomplishments, and everything after that was something she did not as Secretary of State. So what is she really saying here? Now, a good reporter, somebody who isn't a suck-up, would follow up with that. Let's see what Wolf Blitzer did.
All right, so listen to what Carly Fiorina also said, Madam Secretary, about some controversial videos opposing Planned Parenthood, an organization you support.
All right, before we go to that, where was the follow-up? Where was the follow-up on that question saying, Mrs. Clinton, I asked you a question about your accomplishments, and if I heard you correctly, the only 2 things you named were this and this, the ceasefire and the sanctions. Is there anything else? That's what a good reporter, somebody who's adversarial, who's looking to really get answers out of somebody, would say. Instead, he moves on to something else that was said by a political opponent. This is where the Wolf Blitzer doesn't have the courage to ask Hillary Clinton himself what's going on. Instead, he uses the Republican as a foil to ask the question for him. This is a form of bias.
Let's talk about another source of criticism you received last night. This one from the New Jersey governor, Chris Christie. He said at the debate, "You can't tell the American people the truth." Those are his words about your email, the whole controversy. He says you should be prosecuted for having a server in your basement. He says with national security secrets running through it. He says Russians, Chinese, even 18-year-olds could have hacked into your server. You think that was possible, that they hacked into your server?
There's no evidence of that. And again, this is overheated rhetoric, baseless charges, trying to somehow, gain a footing in the debate and in the primary, and it really doesn't deserve any comment.
It doesn't deserve comment. Mike Morrell, who was head of the CIA, told Hewitt in an interview that it is inconceivable that every intelligence service in the world wouldn't have targeted her server and hacked it easily. And the comments that were made by Chris Christie during the debate that she should be prosecuted are right on target because she violated the Espionage Act. Now, whether that will happen or not is a doubtful. It's an open question, but it is doubtful because the Obama administration has totally politicized law enforcement in this country. And there's just no way that they're going to indict her and prosecute her aggressively the way they would a Navy sailor, for example, who took a picture of himself with his iPhone in front of his radar installation there on his ship, and is now getting 20 years in prison for it. She did a lot worse than that. And for her to sit there and laugh it off, it's just a sign of arrogance. But notice that Blitzer doesn't really pursue her on this. He should pursue her. Liberal media bias is obvious, and I'll tell you why. At the beginning of this video, I showed you something Donald Trump didn't do during one of his town halls yesterday in correcting an idiotic question from someone in his audience. He didn't have to go as overboard as John McCain did with, just extolling the virtues of Obama back in 2008. He sounded ridiculous. But he should have said something. He didn't. Okay, he didn't. You're going to hear about it endlessly today. But this, from Hillary Clinton, where she doesn't even want to comment on the fact that her server was hacked, and Blitzer never followed through to say, Madam Secretary, there's a laundry list of information technology experts who say anybody could have hacked into your server. There's no need for evidence. We know that you're targeted because you're the Secretary of State. We know your server was vulnerable. We don't need to prove in a court of law here in this conversation, in this interview, that your server was compromised for you to give us an honest answer about it. But there's no pursuit of the Democratic nominee ever. And it doesn't have to be Hillary Clinton. It could have been Barack Obama. It could be anybody. Bernie Sanders. They will never pursue aggressively in their line of questioning the Democratic nominee. They will always let them answer the question and then move to the next question. And I want you to notice that as we go through the political campaign, because you're going to see this over and over and over. But when the Republican is embroiled in some sort of a controversy like the one with Trump and that guy asking the question, you will not only hear them ask Trump 1,000,000 times about that guy, you're going to hear them ask every Republican candidate about that guy. And eventually they'll get to Hillary Clinton too, and Bernie Sanders. They will ask them about what Trump should have done. And they will make that the issue. But Hillary Clinton compromising the security of the United States for 4 years on a server that was unsecured, she gets to laugh it off. That is media bias. And, you know, it's something that people in the media need to be confronted over. It is not necessarily something that they need to confront Hillary Clinton over. You got to confront Wolf Blitzer over it. You've got to go, and when you see Wolf Blitzer walking around in Manhattan somewhere, you got to say to him, I don't like the way you're asking questions. You need to be a little bit more aggressive on Democrats, Wolfie. These people are so in the pocket of Democratic politicians, it's disgusting. Now, I'm not saying that they should go light on Republicans. I'm saying they should go just as hard on Democrats as they do on Republicans or anybody else. You're either an aggressive, adversarial media or you're a lapdog. And Wolf Blitzer here is a lapdog.